We are going to talk about the Hoshaanot today. The Hoshaanot that are being recited while we go around the Teva. Hoshaana literally means redeem us. Hoshaana. It was borrowed from the Jewish tradition into the Christian tradition, and in the modern English language, people still refer to hosannas. That when you say special prayers and praises, a lot of their prayers were taken from the Jewish tradition. So let's see what the Shulchan Aruch says. No, they got it from us. They got it from us. They, especially this one, because Hoshaana is in Aramaic. The word Hoshaana sounds like Aramaic, so they felt comfortable with it. The early Christians spoke Aramaic. Here in Siman Taf Resh Samech, it's chapter 660 in the Shulchan Aruch. It says after the Torah reading. Maybe we'll go back to just quickly to Siman Tarnat 659. First you say Hallel, after the Hallel Kaddish Shalem. Umotziim shnei sfarim. You take out 2 Sifrei Torah. You read what they have to read. Umahazir asfarim. Ve'omer Kaddish. ומתפללים הציבור בלחש מוסף, ומחזיר שליח ציבור תפילה ואומר קדיש. So you say Hallel, you read the Torah, you say Musaf, you do the Hazara, you say Kaddish, and then ואחר כך אומר הושענה, ויש שאנו אומרים קדיש אחר הושענה. So הושענות, according to the two, originally were said after Musaf, at the end of the Tefillah. Today, we do it between Shacharit and Musaf. How did it happen? Most probably because people would leave after Musaf. You say, oh, you're going to give us another round of prayers. So people would drop out of the synagogue slowly. So the rabbis decided, let's move it before Musaf. And that created a lot of problems, because the question is, if you take, like he says here, ונוהגים להקיף התיבה פעם אחת בכל יום, ומעלים ספר תורה על התיבה כשמקיפין אותה. You bring the Sefer Torah to the Teva when you do the Hakafot. So now, originally you would open the Echal twice. One after Shacharit to take out the Sefer Torah for the regular reading. One after Musaf to take out the Sefer Torah for the Hoshaanot. Now what do? Do you still open the Echal twice? Do you open it once? How do you do it? So some synagogues have the tradition of opening the Echal immediately after the Hallel, without any fanfare. Meaning just someone walks over to the Echal, opens it, takes the Sefer Torah, puts it in the Teva, they do the Hoshaanot, the same person returns the Sefer Torah to the Echal, and then they do the official Ptihat HaEchal. But it looks a little disorganized, right? Then in the other traditions, this is what you do in Yerushalayim. Basically, you follow the regular order of Ptihat HaEchal. Right after Hallel, you open the Echal as you do for the Torah reading. You bring the Sefer Torah to the Teva. You could do the Agba either before or after the Hoshaanot, it doesn't matter. And then you do the Hakafot, and after the Hakafot you read the Torah. This way you don't repeat unnecessarily another opening of the Ark. וביום השביעי מקיפים אותה 7 פעמים זכר למקדש. On the 7th day you go around the Teva 7 times, as they used to do in the temple. דתנן, בכל יום מקיפים את המזבח פעם אחת, וביום השביעי 7 פעמים. Every day in the temple they would go around the altar once, and on the 7th day 7 times. That practice that was in the Mikdash, we don't know exactly what is its source. It could have been introduced at the temple. Some people said that it was Minhag Nevi'im, it was an older tradition.
Some say Yericho, no?
So it seems like it reflects on the conquest of Yericho, when Yoshua and the Israelites fought against Yericho. Hashem said to go around the city each day once, and on the 7th day 7 times blow the shofar, and then the walls came down. But that was like an act of war, and here it's an act of praise. So there's certain similarity. V'omrim, what do they say? V'omrim ana Adonai Hoshiana, ana Adonai Atzlichana. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ani vahu Hoshiana. So the Hoshaanot at the time of the temple, which were much simpler, they didn't have all the long texts that we read. They would just go and say, Ana Adonai Hoshaana, Ana Adonai Slihana. And that's why they called it Hoshaana, because it built on the pasuk, Ana Hashem, please God, Hoshiana, redeem us. Please God, Ana Hashem, Hatzlihana, make us successful. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ani Vahu Hoshiana. Rabbi Yehuda introduced a new text that is not in the Torah. The words Ani Vahu Hoshiana are not in the Torah. And for some reason it is printed in the Mishnah without the aleph at the end, Vahu, only Hey Vav. So later commentators said that there is a Kabbalistic meaning there.
Who is Vahu? Is it my friend? Or
no, right, exactly. So Ani Vahu. So it's not clear. Yeah. Ani Vahu, Hoshiana.
If I say Ani Vahu, it's clear. It's God.
No, Va and Ve is the same. It's just the grammar in Hebrew. Well, that's what Matthias is saying. So it could be that Rabbi Yehuda, when he said his original intention was Ani Vahu Hoshiana, you can't say that the Hu refers to God because it's me and him. Please redeem. So who is Hashem going to redeem himself? So it makes more sense to say that Rabbi Yehuda is saying Ani Vahu, me and him, me and my friend, me and my colleague, me and my body, me and my neighbor, whatever you call it. We all deserve to be redeemed, and that will be perfectly appropriate for Sukkot, because Sukkot is the time of unity, of oneness. As we go out of the house, sit in the sukkah. Basically, we're inviting everybody to join. We're bringing down the walls. Maybe like the walls of Yericho, we symbolically bring down the walls of our house, because we're not contained in the house. We go out. So it's really appropriate to say Ani Vahu Hoshiana. Also, another reason to say that Rabbi Yehuda was referring to the friends, to other people, other pilgrims at the temple, and not to God, is that the rabbis say on the pasuk, Yerushalayim is the city that comes together. So the meaning of could be either a city that is built in a continuous way, meaning it's a strong city, or that everybody is hover, everybody flocks to Yerushalayim. The rabbis commented in a different way on that. They said, it's a city that turns all Am Yisrael into haverim, into friends. So if you take it literally, haverim, friends, it's beautiful, right? It brings everybody together. But actually, it's a legal statement. When you say haverim, it is based on halakha. What is the halakha? At the time towards the end of the period of the temple, and after the destruction also, there was a social class called haverim. Those were the people who, just like members in a club, there was a sort of an exclusive club of those people who take it upon themselves to eat on a regular basis what they eat at home, with the same requirements of purity that are applied to the food or to the sacrifices in the temple. Meaning, you only have to keep the laws of purity when you eat sacrifices or any offerings that were brought to the temple. When you eat your own food at home, you don't have to do that. Those people decided, in order to be able to always go to the temple, we always want to be at that heightened level of purity. And so if you pass the tests, or you show that you're trustworthy, you would become a member of this club, and you would be a haver friend, but also member. And the members of this club would eat by each other at each other's homes and borrow dishes from each other. But if you were not a haver, then you would be called Am Haaretz, which today is a derogatory term. Am Haaretz is like an ignoramus. But back then it meant the people of the land, like the masses. So if, for example, your neighbor is Am Haaretz and you're a haver, and your neighbor comes and says, can I borrow a pot? You will give it to her, but then when she gives it back to you, you will have to take it to the mikveh or to purify it. If it's clay, you'll have to break it. If your neighbor comes over and says, I need to make dough for halal, I want to make a large quantity, can we do it together? It's maybe some other day. So it created divisions, not much different than what we see today with the different requirement of kashrut, where people start saying, I cannot eat in your house, or I'll eat in your house, but I won't eat those things, or like I told you, people that come and open the garbage can to see the wrappers and to know if what we serve them is kosher. So it's a big problem. And here is what the rabbis did that was pretty courageous for that time. They said this: in Yerushalayim, on the holiday, we consider everybody to be haverim. We assume that everybody maintains the highest level of purity. We don't ask, we don't label. And that allowed people to, first of all, they allowed them to run their commercial life as usual, because if a haver, a member of the club, for example, had a barrel of wine that he wanted to sell, and he sells it in Yerushalayim during the holiday, if he has any leftovers, he will have to throw it away because it will become impure. They say, don't worry, it is pure. You could all share the food, you could all buy and sell to each other. So that is the idea of bringing all Am Yisrael together, Kol Yisrael Haverim. So again, this is why I think it's appropriate to say that Rabbi Yehuda originally meant Aniva Hoshaana, me and him, me and my friend, not me and God. But Rashi is the first one. He says that it's Shnei Shemot Shel Ayin Bet. It is a mystical tradition that refers to the names of God, which are made of 72 letters, which are referred to in the Psukim Vayisa, Vayavo, Vayet in Shemot, chapter 14, right after Yetziat Mitzrayim. It says Vayisa Amud Anan Haolech Lifnei Machane Yisrael Vayavo Machareim. The whole description there of how the pillar of the cloud and the pillar of fire move from before the camp to after the camp. The mysticists of what we call Hasidei Ashkenaz, the first generation of mystics in Germany that studied the tradition of Eretz Israel, interpreted these psukim as having mystical significance, and and they said that the word vahu, vav hey vav, somehow alludes to these three psukim, which is a very weak connection, but that is part of the, sort of like we say, the charm of the Hoshaanot for some people, because they believe they have this mystical power. So the tradition of the Hoshaanot evolved from prayers and praises into poems that were composed mainly in the Ashkenazi tradition. I think anyone who's a little familiar with our Sephardic tradition and understands the words of the Piyutim will realize that the language of the Hoshaanot is not Sephardic. It's not the Sephardic tradition. I'll give you a couple of examples. This is from the Hoshaanot for Hoshaana Rabbah. There is, for example, Shai Lecha Atshir. Shai Lecha Atshir. So, I will give you a gift. Now, the word Atshir, right, is derived from the word Teshura, which is a gift. But nobody says, you can't say it in the active, Atshir, I will give a gift. It never used before or after. This is the kind of the new words that were invented by the Paitanim. It is interesting that in modern Hebrew you have the word tesher, tip, even though nobody uses the word. When you go to a restaurant in Israel, nobody asks the waiter, "Kama tesher ani tzich letet lecha." If you say that, he will look at you as like you fell from the moon. They still say tip, but officially the Academy invented this word. Also in Hoshaana Rabbah, it says v'kamim gahel. So for the rhyme, what is kamim? Kamim is another word. It's a synonym for enemies. Gahel is from the word gahelet. Gahelet, which is a coal, burning coal. So kamim gahel, burn them. But again, this is not a verb. That if you know Hebrew, it's not.
Black, right?
Yeah, and so on. There are many examples. But what it took a new life. At the medieval times. There's a long story. I'm not going to get into now. The people developed the belief that Hoshaana Rabbah is called Leila Hotam, Hoshaana Rabbah is the night in which one's verdict is sealed. There's no source for that in the early traditions, not in the Talmud, not in the Mishnah, to say that Hoshaana Rabbah is the end. And definitely not in the Torah. In the Torah, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, that's it. Yom Kippur, you're done with the high holidays. Your verdict is given. Your year is ready. If you want to keep on doing the Teshuvah, you're welcome. But turning Sukkot from a holiday of joy and jubilation into one when you say Salihot, when they say Salihot on Hoshaana Rabbah, the full thing. We've said it like 1,000,000 times before Kippur, and on Kippur another 1,000,000 times, and now you come to the last day of Sukkot, and you say Akafot and Anenu and Vayavo. Where does it come from? This is a combination of the first leg of it started in medieval Europe in Germany, and there are many elements, including the I don't know if you ever heard of the idea of that you have to go out and see your shadow in the moon on Hoshaana Rabbah. Jonathan, have you heard of that? That was
what if they believe how long you are going to live.
yes. That's called Ela Hotam. It was a belief that was common among Jews in Ashkenaz, even among rabbis. They believe that if you go out and you look at your shadow in the moon, if something is missing from the shadow, that is, if you don't see your leg, God forbid, you're going to lose a leg, etc. And if you don't see the shadow, that's it. You're not going to survive the year, and it was scary. Scholars were able to show that this is a pagan German tradition that made its way unfortunately, into our tradition. I think if you know the song "Moon Shadow" by Cat Stevens, I think he also refers to that also. And then that was the first part of it. The second part came after the rise of Kabbalah, the Zohar and the Kabbalah in the 15th century, and the Mekubalim created a whole new nusach for Hoshaana Rabbah, and referring to the Sefirot and all that, which is, I would say, in many cases, when you go through the whole text of the Hoshanot, the daily Hoshanot are not too bad, but Hoshaana Rabbah is too long. It's tedious. People don't understand the Salihot, and we really need to create a shorter and abridged version.
Okay, you said Ashkenazim. So what was the minhag of the Sephardim before Germany?
Oh, they would just go around the Teva one time.
Do we have?
Yeah, they would go. Rav Saadia go and wrote here. We know that they did Akafot, but the texts that were read, we didn't have all that.
No.
Right. רב סעדיה כתב שם מקיפין מיד אחר קריאת ההפטרה בעוד הספר על התיבה, ומנהג טוב הוא כדי שלא להוציא הספר שלא לצורך כיוון שאין קוראים בו, אלא שאין נוהגים כן. רב סעדיה said we do the הקפות, but while the ספר תורה is still on the תיבה. סדר ההקפה כתב רב היי בכל יום 2 פעמים, אחד לימינו ואחד לשמאלו. according to רב היי גאון, the last גאון of בבל, you do 2 הקפות, one you go to the right, one you go to the left, but people don't do that. וביום השביעי 3 לימין, 3 לשמאל, 1 לימין, 3 times to the right, 3 times to the left, and again ימין. ובשבת אין מקיפין. And on Shabbat you don't do הושענות, you don't do הקפות. The Shulchan Aruch says יש מי שאומר שאין אומרים הושענה ברבה בשבת ולא נהגו כן. The Shulchan Aruch seems to suggest that you do say הושענות on Shabbat. מנהג ירושלים is not to say it on Shabbat, because on Shabbat you don't say words of tahanunim, of supplication. But this is definitely minhag that took a life of its own and kept evolving, and people do it. I think that it is important for people to take time and try to read through the Hoshanot and see what they mean. And hopefully for this year I'll be able to prepare an abridged nosach of the Hoshanot for Hoshaana Rabbah, so we can both keep the minhag, but also make it in a way that is not cumbersome, that we don't have to feel that we rush through the Hoshanot just to finish them and go to work or go to sleep. If we stay there all night.
What's the purpose?
The idea is, okay, so going around in a circle in general, the idea is that you create a sacred place. I mentioned it one time in a class here that there is a story in the Zohar about 2 scholars who went into a cave and they said, let us surround the cave with Divrei Torah. And then Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was approaching the cave, and he says, already before I came in, he said, I felt the presence of Torah here. So it's a symbolic concept of creating a sacred space. You're like, you're building sort of a bubble around yourself, protecting. So,
Soloveitchik, I learned that he came up with the idea. It comes from Yerek. What was the purpose? Because you pull the Shekinah and everything, breaks.
Yes.
It's like a centrifuge.
Okay, interesting. Centrifuge, like a whirlpool. Yeah. Interesting.
And
that's
that was
right. But if you do it in the synagogue, you don't want to bring anything down, so you want to make it powerful. So I think that's another aspect, and I think that's also the reason why in the Ashkenazi tradition the bride goes around the groom, even though some people say, and I think I officiated in some weddings where it did apply, it is in order to make the bride dizzy, because otherwise she would say no. So you want to get her a little wait. But according to that, the idea is that the symbolism is that the bride is creating this sacred space which is dedicated for her and her husband. I think that's the kavanah that we have to have in Hoshaana. Baruch Adonai, le'olam, amen, v'amen.